Yeah, hi there. This is Micheal Buckhoff. So these comments are for Yunna. So you wanted to ask me a few questions. Let me take a look at your email really fast. You say, Dear Professor Buckhoff, hello, this is Yunna from South Korea. I am taking a TESOL class, EESL Curriculum and TESOL, and one of the assignments is to interview a current teacher whose teaching level is the same as mine. In addition, I'm not a Yasuda Center student, so I don't have any idea, but my Korean roommates said you are very proficient and good teacher. Anyway, my questions will be about curriculum of your class, and these will be simple, and the due date of the assignment is on Monday, so I was wondering if you could help me for about 10 minutes on Thursday and Friday. I don't have any class on Friday, so any time is okay with me. Let me know. All right. Yes, I can help you. So let's take a look at each of your questions. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. All right, so again, this is an interview with Yunna, and this is Micheal Buckhoff. So your question one is, which classes do you teach now? Okay, currently for the American Culture and Language program, I teach grammar, level 4, which is intermediate level. I also teach TOEFL reading and writing, which is a advanced class for level 5 and 6 students. I also teach TOEFL listening and speaking for level 4 students. So right now I'm teaching 3 classes for the American Culture and Language program. I also teach first year composition classes for the English department, also here at California State University, San Bernardino. All right, let's take a look at your next question. I actually answered that one. Let's go to question 3. I really want to be an English teacher in Korea. I was wondering if you could let me know about your teaching philosophy or beliefs and why you think so. All right. My philosophy is actually pretty simple. And I tell my students this. There's 3 things that my students have to do in order to get better in their English proficiency. Number 1, they need to practice. Number 2, they need to practice over an extended period of time. And then number 3, they need to have a good attitude and be motivated to learn. So basically, practice, time, and motivation are the 3 essential ingredients for my students to learn a language. So it's part of my philosophy and my job to help motivate my students, to help them want to become better than what they are now in terms of their English proficiency. Part of my philosophy is the same. I can lead the horse to water, but I can't make the horse drink the water. The same thing with my students is we do a lot of things in class, and also I give them suggestions about specific things they can do to become better in their overall English proficiency, but it's their decision. They have to make the choice on whether or not they want to do it or not. All right, let's go to the next question. You said, is your teaching philosophy a belief? Is it a common goal and general belief in teaching English as a second language? I don't know, probably. I think a lot of ESL and EFL instructors, we look at ourselves as motivators and as wanting to help our students be the best they possibly can be. Question 5. What is your goal or objective of the language curriculum? If a goal or objective is different according to what class you teach, how is it different? And what is your general ultimate goal of language curriculum? All right, let's take a look at my grammar class for a minute. So the biggest goal that I have in this particular class that really defines the curriculum that I teach in this class is to help students improve their grammar within the context of their reading and also within the context of their writing and their speaking skills mostly. Again, the main goal of my grammar class is to help students improve their grammar proficiency within the context of speaking and also writing. So I don't want them to see grammar as an isolated component of language. I want them to see this within a larger context. And that is a very, very important goal that I have with my students. So when we talk about adjective clauses or noun clauses or gerunds or infinitives, these are three main things that we teach in level 4 grammar. I try to show them how they can use these things in both speaking and writing, and we practice using these things in both of these contexts. So it's very important. So I think with many of my classes, I have similar goals. Obviously, whatever the classes I teach, I want them to be better speakers and better writers of English. But sometimes my goals or objectives may change according to what class I teach, which is part of your questions. You say, how is it different? Okay, so let's take a specific example of TOEFL for a minute. Let's look at my TOEFL reading and my TOEFL writing class. So within my TOEFL reading and writing class, my goal here is to improve my students' proficiency in both college reading and then also writing, particularly as it relates to the essay exam. So there's a lot of specific things that we do in my TOEFL reading and writing class that I don't do in my grammar class for level 4. For example, in my TOEFL reading and writing class, we focus a lot on the essay exam and the strategies of how to organize an essay within this 30-minute time limit, which is difficult. So I'm trying to help my students learn how to manage the time as opposed to the time managing them. So in my grammar class, I focus a lot on combining sentences and short paragraphs and writing and those kinds of things. But in my TOEFL class, we focus more on essays, longer type writing assignments. So there are some differences in my goals and curriculums depending on what class I'm actually teaching. So number 6, which standards do you use to plan your language curriculum? Good question. Well, with our program, like a lot of intensive English programs, we actually have what's called the American Culture and Language Program curriculum. And this curriculum we've been working on since the 80s. And in this particular curriculum, for each level, for each area, we have specific guidelines of what we want to teach and what students need to master before they can go on to the next level. For example, let's take a look at my level 4 grammar class and let's look at the curriculum for this class. So within this class, the curriculum focuses on complex type sentences, and specifically, students are learning how to write sentences with adjective clauses, noun clauses, and gerunds and infinitives. So a lot of what we teach focuses in these three core areas. On the other hand, if you go to our level 3 curriculum for grammar and you look at what's being learned there, it'll be different. In that level, students are focusing more on modals, words like could, can, will. They're focusing on verb tenses and those kinds of things. They're also focusing on count and uncount nouns and in those areas. So each curriculum, we have a defined set of things, of standards that we teach and that students learn, and we try not to, there is overlapping, obviously, of language skills, but we try to target certain things at certain levels. So we target the right kind of English instruction to the right level of English proficiency, and we avoid repetitiveness. We don't repeat too many things from one level to another. So students feel when they go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level 4 and to level 5, they feel like they're getting good, specific, and different instruction at those different levels. Let's go to 7. Your question is, are there any context or situational factors that influence curriculum and instruction? Yes, there are. And I think within our program, we are the American Culture and Language Program, and primarily, most of our students have a goal of matriculating at a later date to an American university. So a majority of our students, they have goals of getting undergraduate degrees and also graduate degrees. So our curriculum, because of this situation, of this context, we focus a lot on academic English. For example, a lot of the goals that we have once we get to the higher levels is to help teach students to learn how to write analytical research papers, compare and contrast papers, these kinds of writing assignments. So if the context were different, for example, if we had mostly immigrant students who were living here permanently in the United States and they did not plan on attending American universities, I think that would have directly affected the curriculum that we've designed in our program. So the answer is a big yes. I think the context and situation can influence the curriculum and the instruction. Okay, let's take a look at your question number 8. Do you have any tips or guidelines of planning a language curriculum? What other elements do I have to consider as a teacher when I plan a language curriculum? I would say, like us, what are the ultimate goals of the customers or the students whom you plan to teach? What do they want to do after they finish your program? For example, do they have goals of attending universities? Do they have goals more of using English for the workplace? Or do they just simply want to learn English so they can function and live here in the United States and be able to communicate with native speakers? Ultimately, what are the goals of the students that you plan to service? And I think that will drive the kind of curriculum that you want to design. So those would be some of my things to think about. And no matter what their goals are, though, here's a tip. You have to think of the core areas of language proficiency. You have to think really of reading, listening, you have speaking, you have writing, maybe grammar, right? Maybe vocabulary. So you have to think of these areas, these major areas of English proficiency, and think about how you want to integrate these within your curriculum. For example, would you rather have a reading and writing class, or would you rather have a reading class separate from the writing class? So sometimes you can integrate certain types of proficiencies and put them within the same class. So that's another thing. Another question would be, what role or how do you view grammar? Would you view grammar as a separate component, as a separate class, or would you rather put that within the context of your writing class? There's no right or wrong there. It's just how you would want to do it. So those would be some basic tips there. All right, let's go to 9. Your question is, what effective strategies or practices do you use in ESL, EFL settings? So I think one of the main things is to be organized, to let students know that you know what's going on, you've carefully thought and organized the class, and usually if you have an organized class, it usually relieves a lot of the stress of the students you teach. So that would be one thing. Now, another effective strategy is classroom management. And one thing that I found is very useful is try to learn these students' names as soon as possible so you can create a more personable atmosphere in the classroom and students will be more comfortable. Another strategy is question answer. When you ask a question to an ESL student, you need to pause even sometimes up to 30 or 40 seconds. So you have to be comfortable with silence. For example, if I ask a question, I may just be quiet for 30 or 40 seconds there and wait to give students a chance to respond. So the response time needs to be much longer than what you would do in a normal classroom. So that's another tip. Another tip would be, if you have disruptive students, sometimes students, they're just normal, and sometimes they're talking when you're talking, they're not paying attention, and you're trying to control and keep the class focused and together and not off task. I call it the proximity principle. You don't have to go up to somebody and say, be quiet. They're all adults. We teach adults. I don't treat my ESL students like children, but what I'll do is if they are talking to somebody and they are off task, I'll simply stand close to this person. I'll say nothing. I'll just stand close to them, and usually that will neutralize the situation and they will stop talking. So that's another tip. All right, let's go to question number 10. What do you use as instructional resources and materials? Do you think it works very well? Why do you think the materials or resources you use are very good to teach English? Okay, so a lot of what I do is question answer type teaching, but also I do use a lot of online resources. I have a website. It's called www.bettertoeflscores.com. I use that as one of my teaching resources for a lot of my classes. Also, I use YouTube. I use www.youtube.com. I have a YouTube channel. And sometimes in class, we'll watch some of my YouTube videos. A third resource I use is www.voxypop.com. Voxypop is VOXOPOP.com. Voxypop is where my students actually practice their speaking assignments. It's an online resource where my students can practice speaking. So I do use a large number of online resources to help supplement what I'm teaching in the classroom. So I found that they're pretty effective. A lot of my students are pretty comfortable using technology, so it's not a major problem for them. Number 11, your question is, how do students assess achievements? Is the way to assess their achievements different according to what class you teach? How is it different? I'm going to say yes, it is different. Remember that we're teaching different levels, and depending on whether it's a level 5 or level 4 student, we will assess different things. For example, in level 5 grammar, those students are studying adverb clauses, and they're studying more parallel structure type grammar. So those are some of the things that we'll assess and test and look for in their writing and so on. But in grammar level 4, they're not studying those things. They're studying, like I said before, noun, adjective clauses, and gerunds and infinitives. So depending on what they're learning, which is dictated from the curriculum, we will create different assessment standards in those areas. So they might be different. In my TOEFL reading and writing class, I'm focusing a lot on writing the essay exam, so we have a lot of essay exams. In my grammar class, we don't focus as much on writing essay exams as opposed to understanding and using grammar. So in my grammar class, I focus more on paragraphs and shorter sentences, and then my TOEFL reading and writing class, I focus more on longer forms of writing. So anyway, thank you for your questions, and thank you for allowing me to do this interview with you. So I hope this information helps you in the class you're taking right now, kind of give you some good ideas about what we do and how we do things as ESL teachers. Thank you.